YouTube will see you.
morning. I'm Lori Quigley. I'm privileged to serve as president of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley. As we begin this morning, please turn off all electronic devices. And I invite you to enjoy the chapel at the back of the sanctuary and note any joys or concerns you might have in the book there. If you have little ones, we have a nursery downstairs. We also broadcast the service on the closed circuit TV, which is located in the social hall near the nursery if you need to stay downstairs. And after the service, please join us downstairs for coffee and refreshments and to greet one another. Finally, please note the announcements in your order of service with the many ways to be engaged in this vibrant community. And it's great to see so many friends and some new faces that I hope to become friends with here this morning on this beautiful fall day. Come, whoever you are. You are welcome here, no matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin. You are welcome here, no matter whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities. You are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. If you come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are welcome here.
And let me add my good morning to good morning, everyone. Good morning. Before we get rolling, I want to take a moment for appreciation. I'm the Reverend Bob LaValle, if Tony didn't know that. I want to take a moment for appreciation. You know, worship really is special here at South Valley. I've seen a bunch of churches. I think we do worship really well. And I think it's special because of the efforts of a large number of folks. There's the worship committee led by Cody Pace. The choir and the musicians bring so much these hours together. There's always a greeter from the board. Today it's our board chair, Laura Quigley. There's the lay leaders today is Mary Norton. Thank you, Mary. Where are you, Mary? Oh, there you are. Hi, Mary. And Liz Martin, who does great things all the time for our Time for All Ages. There's Amy Costello, who brings these gorgeous flowers to the altar. Cindy Martin, our administrator, who's on vacation this coming week, who lays out the order of service. Let's not forget James Carlson, who's our sexton. If you're not familiar with the word sexton, that's an old-fashioned word for the person who takes care of the church and the churchyard. And if we had an active graveyard, James would be responsible for digging graves. So fortunately for him, we don't. So that's one less thing for him to do. Paula Eichbauer, our facilities volunteer. What about the wonderful folks who do hospitality down at the parish hall? How about Russ Martin and the team who do the streaming? Putting our worship out on the interwebs. And how about folks who just simply take time out of their busy lives and get up on a Sunday morning and comb their hair and put on trousers and come be here, because it wouldn't be anything without you. So, just being present. The list is enormous, and I'm sure I've forgotten folks, and I apologize for that. And my point is that worship is both an act of the entire church body, and it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for what we do here in this church, this congregation is in a process of co-creation. I see the congregation doing so much, showing up and co-creating and conjuring things that didn't exist before, and weaving and reweaving this web of community. And it inspires me so much. It's so impressive. So thank you. Today's service is about the practice of spiritual companionship. And this morning, we're going to do something very countercultural. We're going to slow down and do less. So aside from our bouncy in-gathering hymn, which we just sang, you're going to find that the music is, in the words of our incredible accompanist, Rick Nobis, Our music is subdued and luminous. So to set the tone for worship today, I want to read a poem by Martha Postlewaite called Clearing. Clearing by Martha Postlewaite. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life, falls into your cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. That was Clearing by Martha Postlewaite, just clearing, possibly a noun, possibly a verb. So as we seek the song that is our lives, come, let us worship together. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 1045. In the Teal hymnal, There is a Balm in Gilead.
invited Oz Bliss and his dad to help us light our chalice this morning.
Please join us in saying our chalice lighting words.
We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action.
Thank you, Grace.
Okay, thank you. Yes, adjust that. I would like to invite all of my young and young at heart friends to come forward for our Time for All Ages. I'd like to specifically ask my young friends who are wearing a dirty string on themselves for 6 weeks to join me up front. And you'll get to hear more about that in our Time for All Ages. All right, have a seat. Excellent. You don't have to sit that far away from me. Okay, so today's worship service and the sermon after we go downstairs is about spiritual companionship. And this got me thinking about something. I would like to hear from those of you out there in the audience who haven't been downstairs with us in RE for the last 5 years since we've been doing Tapestry Faith. I want to hear from you. So everyone else, hold your thoughts, because I know you're going to have the answers, but I want to ask them. Okay, so if you're one of those people, here's your question. What do you think happens when we go downstairs? I saw that, Cody. Everybody turn around and see what Cody did. Yes. Okay. There's a little bit of that, for sure. Learning and fun. Okay. Anybody else?
Spiritual enlightenment.
Spiritual enlightenment. You've spent some time downstairs, haven't you? All right. So the reason I wanted to ask you that is because spiritual companionship and spiritual practice is a big part of what happens downstairs. We worship together when we go downstairs. In our 7 classrooms down there, that worship happens by age group with some slightly older friends helping us, right? But we do a lot of the same things that you do up here during the worship service. We sing together. Oh dear. we sing together. We light a chalice together. We think about important things and how they affect our lives together. So it's not that different, really, than what happens upstairs, except for that there's a little more movement. Thank you, Cody. A little more movement, and a few non-permanent markers. Those are the big differences downstairs. Yeah? Would you agree? Excellent. Okay. So I also wanted to share. I talked about the dirty string. Who's got a dirty string? Do you see those hands? Those dirty strings on your wrist? Okay. This is a ritual that the high school group does when we get to spend an extended amount of time together. We were able to spend 3 days and 2 nights at Peggy Montron's cabin together this August, and part of that ritual involves tying this string on and just keeping it there until it falls away on its own. And I even wore it officiating a wedding, you guys. That's how dedicated I am, and it's gross. So, ask a high schooler more about that ritual if you'd like to know. But the other ritual I wanted to share was the one that we do in Children's Chapel. My friends from Children's Chapel, what do we do in Children's Chapel? This is once a month when the kindergarten through 5th graders just have class with me, and the teachers get a Sunday off. What do we do? What do we do, Kari? We have a class all together, so it's kindergarten through 5th grade, so 3 whole classes generally meet together. Leo? Yes, we get to know each other. We get to see who's with us each Sunday and get to know them a little bit and find things that we have in common, right? Did you have one, Evelyn? No? Anybody? Is there any other piece of Children's Chapel that we haven't mentioned? Come on, guys. There's a part where everybody gets a chance to speak or a chance to pass. What is that, Sarah? Milestones. Okay. So milestones is something we share in Children's Chapel where all of us share something that's a milestone in our lives. We talk about what a milestone literally means, which is a stone that lets you know that you've traveled a mile on your journey. So we talk about our milestones, and they can be happy things or sad things. They can be exciting things or scary things. It can be losing a tooth. It can be losing a pet. We've had a lot of different stories shared in there. But before we do milestones, this is the spiritual companionship piece that I want to share with all of you. So before we do milestones, we do a ritual with our chime. And we're going to do it with all of you. So the first time we listen to the chime, we listen with our ears. It's kind of like a hearing test. You close your eyes, you listen to the chime until you cannot hear it anymore with your ears. And I'll tell you right now, the kids' eyes stay closed a lot longer than mine. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready? You're going to listen, close your eyes, and listen with your ears. I'm sorry. I should always use the mic when I speak. I'm really sorry if anybody couldn't hear that. Some of us can use our imaginations longer than others, and some of our friends up here want to keep their eyes closed, I think. Okay, so last, the third chime. The third chime, we are going to listen with our hearts, and we are going to try to hear what that chime touches in our lives that we would feel comfortable sharing with our children's chapel group. Okay, so one more time, eyes closed. Open them when you are ready with something from your heart that you're willing to share. Except we're not really going to share today. So this is the point at which in Children's Chapel we would share. We would hold each other's happy things and sad things and honor everybody's right to just say pass. And I wanted to share that with you. We're going to stay up here for a moment so I invite all of you to share your milestones during social hall. How about that? Find someone to share your milestone with, something that has happened to you recently that marks a passage in your life. The rest of us, we're going to stay here for a minute before we go downstairs.
Okay, and actually we're going to need you to move back just a little bit to create some space, because we're going to now call forward the members of the boards of trustees. So Lorelei White, please come forward. Dana Wright, Jan Vanderhooft, the secretary of the board, Judith Mayer, the treasurer of the board, Paul Carlson. Paul, hey Paul. The vice chair, Ann Scarborough, is not here today, but she's here with us in spirit. And the chair of the board of the trustees, Laura Quigley. Come on up front. So it's only September 23rd, but this board has been working really hard on behalf of this church. They met this past Tuesday evening, and they met all day yesterday. And they will be meeting many more times over the course of this year of transition. Service is an act of Unitarian Universalist faith. Service done faithfully in love is the work of justice and community building. This is what the congregation has asked these folks before you to do this morning. They've asked that they serve you faithfully and well, and to do this, they need your trust and support. So let us now enter into a mutual covenant offered freely. I invite the congregation to rise in body or spirit. I ask now the members of South Valley, will you offer love and trust to your board, responding when they seek your input, showing up when they tell you that work needs to be shared, and listening carefully when they speak of the life of this church? If so, please respond, we will. We will. And now to the Board of Trustees. Will you be diligent and faithful in your work, bringing your best selves and practicing self-care and open-heartedness, tending with love to the details of the work, and always keeping the goal of beloved community in front of you as you serve? If so, please respond, we will. We will. The work of the church is the work of the people. It is the work of building the world of which we dream. As a symbol of this work, that the work is always shared, we'll now engage in a ritual that accompanies any installation of anyone into a Unitarian Universalist ministry, and that's the laying on of hands. So I invite you now to come forward and lay your hands on the members of the Board of Trustees. Why don't you take a couple steps forward so folks can surround you. Come forward, lay your hands. Everybody come forward, don't be shy. Don't be shy. If you can't reach a board member, reach somebody in front of you, and we're going to say a short prayer. We invest through our touch, we invest the power of this congregation in the work of this board. Let us pray for our Board of Trustees. Are we all here? Oh, wait a second. We're coming forward. It's a beautiful sight. Look at all the support. Let us pray for our Board of Trustees. When the way is flat and dull in times of gray endurance, may your imagination continue to evoke a horizon. When thirst burns in times of drought, may you be blessed to find wells. May you have the wisdom to read time clearly and know when the seeds of change will flourish. In your heart, may there be a sanctuary for the stillness where clarity is born. May your work be infused with passion and creativity, and have the wisdom to balance compassion and challenge. May your soul find the graciousness to rise above the fester of small mediocrities. May you welcome your own vulnerability as the ground where healing and truth join. May the spirit of love guide you in the coming year. May a spirit of joy infuse the work that you engage. And may your service bless the world. Amen. May return to your seats. And while we're returning to our seats, let's sing our religious exploration participants downstairs. let's take this moment to reflect and pray. We lift up all those who were caught up in the winds and waters of Hurricane Florence and who are working to return to their old lives in their homes. May they find normalcy soon. We lift up all those affected by wildfires and all who struggle to breathe when the air is not clean. May they find renewed strength and health. We remember our interconnections with this planet on which we live. May we find greater harmony with the truths of nature. We lift up all those who make the painful choice between home and safety. May they find welcome and security in their new lands. We pray for comfort for all those who find the news to be reminders of painful experiences. May they find healing and wholeness. We give thanks for our Board of Trustees who give their time and love to build this beloved church community. May they find support and success in their efforts. May we remember that to be alive is to see that the world is both broken and beautiful. May our hands be used to both serve and enjoy this world. And may we remember that we are all in this together. For these spoken prayers and the unspoken prayers that we hold in our hearts, we summon our highest intentions and best energy. May they be so. And may we all be held in the heart of love. Amen, and blessed be.
It is our practice here at South Valley to split our worship service offerings with a charitable organization or program that aligns with our values and principles. For September and October, we will be donating to the American Nepali Students and Women's Educational Relief, ANSWER, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-religious organization that is currently empowering over 600 low-caste children and youth by providing them 12 to 15 years of education through college with careful academic and career counseling. Will you please join me in saying the words printed in your order of service for our offering? We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. Answer and South Valley, thank you for your gifts. If you could now all please turn in your gray hymnal to the responsive reading number 490, Wild Geese. You get to do the italicized part. You do not have to be good.
You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert and
You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine.
Meanwhile, the world goes on.
Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies
high in the clean blue air, are heading home again.
Wherever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like a wild beast, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of the beast.
Today will be an unconventional sermon. I'm going to spend some time talking like you'd expect a minister to talk on a Sunday morning. But then we're going to do something different. We're going to try spiritual companionship. So spiritual direction or spiritual companionship is the practice of intentionally looking for the holy in everyday life. Some of us may have already practiced this without realizing it. There may have been a moment in our life where maybe we were spending time with someone about which we cared deeply. Or maybe we didn't even know them very well, but just something about their presence made us feel calm and safe. And maybe we were in a place that grounds us, maybe a clearing in the woods, or our sofa, or a campfire, or our dinner table, or this sanctuary. Could be anywhere. And we're going along talking to this person or people, and the conversation kind of peters out, and it comes to a pause. And instead of feeling awkward and needing to fill the space with more words, we feel content. We feel connected. Perhaps something else is present. Maybe the divine or the holy or a spirit. That kind of moment is what can happen when we're spiritual companions to each other. Now, we Unitarian Universalists have a very broad sense of what the holy means to us. That's probably the understatement of the year. That's a concept that we can and must make our own decisions about. We're a non-creedal tradition, meaning that we don't require members to swear to a specific theology. We can believe in God all of the time, or some of the time, or none of the time. And we can change our minds. So, for example, these days, I'm calling myself a Jesus-inspired humanist. But if I'm going to be honest, I don't have a clue about the nature of God. But I do see this, how the holy is created in our relationships and manifests in other places. We conjure the holy through our relationships. Now, folks here might have a different view, and I celebrate that difference, and I hope that their theology feeds them and inspires them. So for the purposes of spiritual direction, this idea of the holy doesn't have to be about a specific notion of God. But I do think that it helps a person who wants to do spiritual direction if they are open to a mystery. Perhaps in acknowledging that there are things beyond our intellectual reach, and that must be sensed in ways other than reason. So let's use this idea of listening for the holy. Now, the history of spiritual direction tends to focus on its roots in early Christianity, but I think when you hear more about it in this sermon, you'll be reminded of practices that show up in many traditions, some of which are quite a bit older than Christianity. But Christianity does have a lovely tradition of intentional spiritual direction that was developed in the early Christian desert communities around 300 ACE. And in the convents and monasteries where reflection with a mentor was built into the cycle of the week. Out of these traditions came a variety of spiritual direction techniques, including one we'll be doing in a few minutes. Now, the term spiritual direction implies that someone is telling us what to do, and that's not it. I think perhaps a better phrase is spiritual companionship. And in that model, there's a facilitator who acts as a helpful guide and perhaps offers an invitation that we can choose to accept or maybe take a pass on. So I'll use the words spiritual direction and spiritual companionship interchangeably today. Now, the first time I tried spiritual direction, where I was the one, the directee, I guess, the gentleman I met with, he told me that he didn't like the idea of spiritual direction, and he wanted me to think of him as a spiritual friend. A spiritual friend. I like that. So spiritual direction can happen one-on-one or in groups. The formats vary. We can meet with our director weekly or monthly or once every 6 months. Some folks build it into their lives as part of their lifelong faith journey. Some folks just do it for a year or a season. Some folks just do it only when they're approaching a big life decision, like a changing career or beginning or ending a marriage or encountering a change in health. Now, it's not meant to be a place for providing answers, but it can certainly help with understanding what's going on within one's own spirit. And I think spiritual companionship is especially important for Unitarian Universalists. So, as a faith movement, we are just not that great at offering adult Unitarian Universalists a path to deeper spirituality. Sometimes Unitarian Universalists feel like the path to deeper engagement in the faith is through, the more practical side, like serving on committees or working explicitly for justice, being an advocate. And these are very important parts of being a UU. But they may not foster the kind of spiritual maturity that an explicitly spiritual practice can do. So spiritual companionship might help us find a balance with the other ways that we live out our UU identity. Now, the actual spiritual companionship session, it's an unhurried time. Doesn't that sound refreshing? It really is countercultural. It might include conversation or silence or reading or prayers. There's a wide variety of programs and procedures. And it's not about seeking an overwhelming moment of awe, a big clouds part, kind of moment. For both the director and the directee, it's really simple. It's a time for listening. And it may help to talk about what spiritual direction is not. Spiritual direction is not therapy or counseling. I love therapy, and it's helped me enormously, but it's a different thing. Spiritual direction is not an educational experience with a set program or curriculum. And spiritual direction is definitely not preaching that tries to challenge or persuade another person to a particular theology. The difference I see is that spiritual companionship doesn't intend to solve a problem or change behavior. Rather, it's practicing a way of being. And here's another benefit of spiritual direction. It's a funny thing, but often people of faith feel like their spiritual lives are an entirely private matter. That's my business. But spiritual companionship encourages one to examine one's spirituality and beliefs with another person, with a group. There's a different kind of rigor, if that's the word, when we call ourselves to say these things about our beliefs out loud. Also, spiritual companionship is not meant to be about escape or transcendence or not having to think about the real world. I actually think it does the opposite. I think a healthy spiritual companionship practice actually makes us more resilient, better able to look at uncomfortable things with hearts that are open and that are unafraid of being broken, because we have that spiritual grounding. It can make us better able to endure the tension of speaking truth to power, as we are called to do as UUs. So here's my plug. There's a group spiritual companionship program going. It's going to start this coming Wednesday at 6:30. It's going to go for the next 4 weeks. Details are in your order of service. Contact me or Liz Martin if you'd like to join us, or if you have questions about it. And if it's something that's interesting to you and Wednesdays don't work, then get in touch with me and I can connect you with resources in other places. You don't have to do it here. All right, shall we try a little spiritual direction? Okay, so here's the plan. As I said, there's a lot of ways to do spiritual direction. For today, we're going to use an old technique called Lectio Divina. Lectio Divina. It sounds like a Harry Potter spell, doesn't it? Lectio Divina! So here's how it works. I'm going to read a short poem, and then we're going to sit in silence for 2 minutes. 2 short minutes. And then I'm going to read that poem again, and we're going to sit in silence again. 2 more minutes. And then we'll do that cycle 1 more time for a total of 3 silences and 3 readings of the poems. So while we're sitting in the silence, I'd like you to just sit and listen and watch for the presence of the holy in life. As we talked about before, you can define the holy in the way that best fits your theology today. Don't get hung up on getting that definition correct or creating a theology that's concrete and inflexible. Just think about what feels holy to you in your life right now, and watch for how it is alive and active. Also, if you or someone you're with is struggling with the sitting quietly and being still part, and maybe needs to move or make some noise, that is totally okay. We still love you. This is a place for everyone. So I know this can be a wild thing to ask if you use, but don't overthink it. We love our thinking. So start the process, see where it takes you. Are we ready? So find a comfortable posture, take a deep breath. I'm gonna sit down too. I'm not checking my email, I assure you. I'm just using the timer. The brief poem I'm going to read is by Kathleen Treacy. Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Does the water restore your heart? Does it fill you up at the center so that something of your essence flows out to this thirsty world? Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet?
Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Does the water restore your heart? Does it fill you up at the center so that something of your essence flows out to this thirsty world? Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Does the water restore your heart? Does it fill you up at the center so that something of your essence flows out to the thirsty world? Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Blessed be. So thank you for being a spiritual companion to each other. And I encourage you to share your experiences at coffee hour. In the spirit of staying in the reflective moment, the contemplative moment, I suggest we remain seated while we sing our closing hymn, number 123 in the great hymnal, Spirit of Life. May we find a place where our soul drinks deep, and may it nourish us and may it nourish the world. Our worship is over, our service begins. Go in peace, gentle people.